Are you risking your dream cruise with a bad room choice? I remember the exact moment I realized I'd made a mistake. It was the night before my very first cruise. I opened the cruise line app, eager to see my room assignment, and all it said was, TBA, to be assigned. What does that even mean? I had booked with a website called a guaranteed balcony stateroom. It sounded great, cheaper than the others, and hey, a balcony is a balcony, right? Wrong. What I didn't know is that guaranteed doesn't mean guaranteed location, or comfort, or peace and quiet. It means the cruise line promises to give you something in that category, or better, but they choose where and when you find out. Mine? Right above the nightclub, and right below the pool deck. Every night was a mix of bass thumps and deck chair dragging. Not quite the serene ocean escape I had imagined. And the worst part? I didn't know I could have avoided it. That's what this video is about. If you're new to cruising, or even if you've done it before but never really understood how cabins get assigned, this will change everything, so subscribe now. I'm sharing what I've learned from both my own mistakes and from working alongside crew staff who know exactly how this system operates behind the scenes. By the end of this video, you'll understand what a guaranteed stateroom really means and what it doesn't. When and why you might get your room late. How upgrades really work. And what the cruise lines never explain when you book. Because if you're going to spend hundreds or even thousands on your cruise, the last thing you want is a room that ruins the experience. Let's pull back the curtain. If you've ever seen the letters GTY next to your cruise booking and thought, that must be good, it's guaranteed, right? Well, I hate to break it to you. GTY stands for guaranteed cabin, but not in the way most people think. Let me explain. When you book a GTY stateroom, you're not choosing a specific room. You're choosing a category like balcony, ocean view, or interior, and the cruise line promises to give you at least that category or possibly something better. Sounds good so far, right? Here's the catch. You don't get to choose where it is, and you won't even find out which room until much later, sometimes just days before sailing. So what does this really mean? You could end up right next to a noisy crew area with slamming doors, beneath the buffet kitchen where carts roll at 5 a.m., in a room with a lifeboat blocking your entire ocean view, or on deck one, far away from all the fun and action up top. Here's what most passengers don't realize. GTY bookings are how cruise lines fill the leftovers. They're plugging gaps, balancing decks, and allocating rooms based on operational needs, not your preferences. Now, yes, there are upgrades. They do happen, but the real chances? Pretty slim. Cruise workers will tell you that upgrades from GTY bookings usually go to loyal guests with elite status, people booking solo in double rooms, those who booked early and during low-demand seasons. If you're celebrating an anniversary or traveling with a group and want to be near each other, GTY is not your friend. So should you ever book GTY? Sure, but only if you're okay with surprises. It's great if you don't care about location, want to save money, can handle some risk. But if you value sleep, quiet, or being near your travel companions, always pick your cabin, even if it costs a little more. Because a guaranteed cabin only guarantees a room, not a good one. Let's talk about one of the most frustrating parts of a GTY booking, not knowing when you'll actually get your room. When I booked my second cruise, I thought, okay, maybe this time I'll see my room number earlier. Nope. I checked the app daily for weeks. Still said, to be assigned. 2 weeks before sailing, still blank. 3 days out, still nothing. Finally, 36 hours before boarding, boom, my room popped up. And that's actually normal. Cruise lines don't assign GTY rooms right away because they're still rearranging inventory up until the final days, sometimes even the morning of the cruise. Why? Because people cancel last minute. Rooms get shuffled, upgrades are processed, and the ship has to meet certain balance requirements, like lifeboat zones and muster station capacities. That's right, your cabin isn't just a room. It's part of an emergency plan. The cruise line has to make sure the right number of people are assigned to each zone in case of an evacuation. So if you're wondering why your room is still TBA days before departure, that's why. Here's the general timeline. Assign cabins. You'll know immediately since you picked the exact one. GTY bookings. Expect assignment anytime between final payment and embarkation day. Upgrades. If you're lucky, they often happen about 5 to 10 days before sailing. And here's a tip. If you're using the cruise line's app, check your reservation daily in the last week before departure. Sometimes room numbers show up early, but they won't email you about it. Also, if your cabin appears and something looks wrong, like you booked a balcony, but it says interior, call the cruise line immediately. Mistakes happen, and it's easier to fix them if you catch them fast. In the end, GTY means playing the waiting game. And for some people, that uncertainty is exciting. For others, it's just stress. But wait, because this is just the beginning. What I'm about to tell you will definitely be useful to you. Let's flip the perspective for a second. Have you ever asked yourself, why does the cruise line put certain people in certain rooms? It's not random. It's not personal. But it's also not as simple as first come, first served. From the cruise line side, assigning rooms is like solving a massive floating puzzle. Here's what most people don't know. When cruise staff assign GTY cabins, or even adjust assigned ones, they're looking at multiple invisible factors all at once. Things like muster station load balancing. Every guest must be assigned to a safety zone. Each muster station can only handle a certain number of people, so cabins are moved around to make those numbers work. Weight distribution, yes, it's a thing. If everyone is assigned to one end or one side of the ship, it could affect how the ship sails. It's not dramatic, but it matters, especially on full sailings. Deck flow and accessibility. Families often get grouped together near kids' clubs. Older passengers may be placed near elevators or accessible cabins. Sometimes they even try to keep guests with mobility devices on lower decks to reduce elevator wait time. Noise management. The ship tries not to put too many people above nightclubs or under gyms, but when it gets crowded, someone's going there. GTY rooms often end up in those leftover zones. And then there's this. Booking channels matter. Guests who booked through a travel agent, paid in full early, or are part of loyalty programs may get slightly more favorable placements, even in GTY categories. Now, do they sit down with a list of names and start judging? No, it's largely automated, with the crew finalizing leftover gaps. But the process is real, and knowing how it works helps explain why you got the room you did. So if you thought the cruise line forgot about you, or gave you the worst room on purpose, they didn't. They're just playing 3D chess with thousands of guests and limited cabins. And GTY bookings? You're the wild cards they fit in last. Let's talk about the magic word, upgrades. You've probably heard the stories. Someone booked an inside cabin and ended up in a balcony suite, or they paid the cheapest fare and got bumped up 2 categories. So what's the truth? Do cruise lines really hand out free upgrades? Yes, but not the way you think. Most upgrades happen for a reason, not at random. Cruise lines aren't playing Santa Claus. They're strategically moving people to balance the ship and fill cabins in a way that maximizes revenue. So who gets upgraded? Here's what I've seen over and over. Loyalty matters. If you're part of a cruise line's loyalty program, even at the lower tiers, you're more likely to get bumped up, especially if you've cruised with them recently. Solo cruisers sometimes get upgraded to fill double occupancy rooms that would otherwise go unsold. Last-minute inventory reshuffles. If someone cancels a higher category late in the game and the cruise is full, they may bump a GTY guest up to fill it. Early bookers, especially those who paid in full, can sometimes be prioritized when upgrades happen. Quiet season sailings. Cruises in shoulder seasons, like early December or mid-January, are more likely to see upgrades because there's more inventory to play with. But here's the big myth buster. GTY does not mean upgrade. Booking a guaranteed cabin just means you're guaranteed a room in that category or higher. Most people stay right where they started, or worse, get stuck in one of the least desirable locations in that class. If you really want to maximize your upgrade chances, join the loyalty program, even before your first cruise. Book early and pay in full if you can. Avoid peak times when cabins are in high demand. Don't expect miracles, and don't plan your cruise hoping for an upgrade. Because while free upgrades do happen, they're the exception, not the rule. And the people who get them usually did something, intentionally or not, to earn them. Now pay attention to the following. Let's get into the part cruise lines rarely talk about, and your travel agent probably won't bring up either: the hidden risks of room assignments. Because while a cabin may look great on the website or deck plan, reality can be very, very different. I'll never forget a couple I met on a Mediterranean cruise. They had splurged on a balcony stateroom, only to realize, after boarding, that the view was completely blocked by a massive lifeboat hanging in front of their window. And guess what? It was still technically a balcony cabin. No refund, no move, just disappointment. These are the kinds of surprises that GTY bookings and vague room descriptions can hide. Here are the top risk zones most first-time cruisers don't know about. Directly below the pool deck. Sounds convenient? Think again. You'll hear loungers dragging, feet stomping, and early morning cleaning crews. Above nightclubs or theaters, enjoy a vibrating pillow. Some rooms feel like you're sleeping inside a speaker. Near crew access doors. These are high-traffic zones with lots of noise, especially early in the morning and late at night. Aft-facing rooms. Beautiful views, but more movement and noise from engine vibrations or thrusters. Obstructed view cabins. You won't always know how bad it is until you see it. A pole, a boat, or a wall can ruin the whole experience. Another surprise? Connecting cabins. These have a locked internal door between them. If you're not using both rooms, it can mean less sound insulation, so you might hear your neighbor's entire vacation. And here's the real kicker. Even if you book a good category, you can still land one of these if you go GTY. The only way to truly avoid these risks is to choose your cabin, using deck plans, review videos, and even ship forums to cross-check locations. Because once you're on board, the ship is full. Room changes are rare, and what you get is what you live with for the rest of your cruise. Trust me, one bad location can turn even the best itinerary into a sleepless, noisy nightmare. All right, so what should you do with all of this information? If booking a cruise room feels like navigating a minefield, you're not alone. The good news? You don't have to be an expert to make smarter, better choices. Here's a simple checklist to help you book a cabin that actually enhances your cruise experience. Use the deck plan strategically. Pull up the ship's deck plan on the cruise line's website. Now look at what's above, below, and around your chosen cabin. Avoid rooms near elevators, public restrooms, crew access doors, lounges or theaters, the buffet or pool deck. Surround yourself with other cabins. That's your best bet for quiet nights. Another tip is search the cabin number online. Yeah, type your exact room number into Google or YouTube. Chances are someone has posted a review, video, or warning. Cruise forums like Cruise Critic are also gold mines of information. In short, don't just let the cruise line decide for you. With just a little research and planning, you can avoid 90% of the common mistakes and actually enjoy your time in your floating home away from home. Next up, let's talk about how to spot a good deal without falling for the traps. If you've made it this far, you now know more about cruise room assignments than 90% of passengers. And that's exactly the point. Because for most people, choosing a cruise cabin feels like guessing, and too often, that guess leads to regret. A noisy room, a blocked view, a stressful boarding day wondering what you're walking into. But you now understand all of this. Remember, your cabin isn't just where you sleep. It's where you recharge, where you sip morning coffee, where you wind down after long days in port. It can make or break your entire cruise. So, whether it's your first sailing or your fifth, my advice is this. Take control. Don't let the system pick for you, unless you're truly flexible and willing to take the gamble. And if you're curious about what other things the cruise lines don't really want you to know, like how onboard charges really work or secrets from the crew themselves, check out the full playlist I put together right here. It's packed with tips, confessions, and real stories that'll save you money, stress, and maybe even your vacation. Because your cruise should be unforgettable for the right reasons. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you found it helpful. And I'll see you in the next one.